A devastating neurological disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, is also called Lou Gehrig's disease for the baseball great who died of it. It also took the life of renowned physicist Stephen Hawking, actor David Niven, and actor and playwright Sam Shepard, among many others. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. ALS is the most common adult-onset motor neuron disease. It occurs in about 2 people out of every 100,000, and the life expectancy for an ALS patient is only 2 to 5 years. Only 20% of patients live longer than 5 years. The economic cost of patients and their families can be devastating as well. In some cases, it can exceed $200,000 a year, but the good news is more money is now being poured into research. Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Remember the Ice Bucket Challenge? Remember the images like that launched back in 2014? Chances are you, or at least someone in your social media feed, made a video dumping ice on their heads. In fact, 17 million people made those ice dumping videos, raising more than $220 million to fight ALS. The inspiration behind the campaign was a man named Pete Frates. He was a star basketball player at Boston College who contracted Lou Gehrig's disease in 2012. At just 27 years of age. Well, he died last week at the age of 34 after a long, brave fight against the disease. But in those brief 34 years, he helped to change the world. Funding from the Ice Bucket Challenge has led to new research. His family is asking for more donations to ALS-related charities to help keep up Pete's fight, and that of those estimated 30,000 people in the United States who are currently living with the disease. One of those people is Eric Stevens. Eric was an NFL player in St. Louis. He was an LA firefighter, still is, and a newlywed when he got the bad news that just a few months ago that he had ALS. This was in August. Eric is here with his wife Amanda, his brother Brett. Thank you so much for joining us. And tough blow, tough news to have to absorb.
Yeah, it's been a tough blow, definitely. But there's some positive to look forward to and some hope.
Tell us a little bit about your illness and some of the symptoms that made you think that something's not right.
Yeah, it started in my left hand, got a little weak, and I was dropping weights, dropping tools, and then my wife and my brother, my brothers and my dad, they noticed my speech was starting to slow down. I was slurring words and just having a hard time talking. And I went to the doctors. They told me I had ALS and you have 2 to 5 years to live. But there is treatment that is out there, but it's going through the FDA phases. And they're going through clinical trials. So the only way that you can access these treatment is if you're picked for a trial. And it was good news to hear that there's treatment, but not having access to it was another blow.
Yeah, that's kind of like being between that proverbial rock and a hard place. You know,
Exactly.
There's something there, you can't get to it right away. We talked to the chief operating officer of Brainstorm Cell Therapeutics. They've created a type of stem cell therapy for ALS that currently is in clinical trials. He explained the process to me.
We are using a cell-based therapy. So we're using cells to deliver medicine, essentially. And the medicines are biological molecules that we believe either repair the nervous system, particularly the motor neurons, or reduce the inflammation in the environment around the motor neurons. And those are the two mechanisms of action. And the way we have approached this is by using people's own cells.
You know, that's really interesting. It's actually mind-boggling in a way. You think of those little green globs you just saw being those stem cells that are going back into your spine, right. and those things are repairing the problem. That's what you want.
Exactly. That's what I want. That's what hundreds and thousands of people that are suffering from ALS want. They just want a chance to fight. They want a chance at hope. And it's there. It's just we need access to it. It's real close, but unfortunately, real close is several years, and I don't have that time, and neither do thousands and thousands of people.
And that's the difficult part of a thing like this, where you have a new drug that comes on the market. They go through double-blind studies. They have to go through phase 1, 2, 3 until it finally gets out there for general use. That's a really tough situation, and I know that that's something that you wish you could jump into right now.
Yeah, it's extremely tough to hear that, and to hear that the treatment for ALS is currently in the same line as arthritis or headache, which can take up to 12 years to have a drug approved. And ALS patients don't have that time.
2 to 5 years after diagnosis generally is what we hear, although
Yeah.
some make it longer, fortunately.
Correct.
So I guess I want to know what else is going on, because I know that this is a very frustrating situation. Let me ask Brett real quick. You and other firefighters, and you're a firefighting family. You, Eric, still are in the fire department. Brett, you and another brother are in the fire department. What is it that the firefighters in LAFD have done?
Yeah, it's not just the LAFD. I mean, we'd started with kind of the LAFD, but we started this campaign to raise awareness for this disease. We started in the hashtag AXE-ALS.
AXE, AXE-ALS.
Yeah, and since then, firefighters from not only LA but just all over the world really are posting pictures in front of the fire trucks and getting really creative, and you know, it's doing a really good job of raising awareness,
Spreading the word.
Yeah.
And Amanda, that's really what it's all about at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were guilty of not knowing much about ALS when we received the diagnosis, and the more we learn, the more we want to share with the world what's really going on. And like Eric said, that there's hope for the first time, and just raising awareness about the disease, I think, is huge, and it's educating a lot of people.
You know, it's interesting that there's 2 other medicines out there that have been there for a long time. This is apparently quite a step above. Eric, I want to give you the last word. What would you like to tell everybody?
I think just keep spreading the word. The more awareness that we get out there is going to help my case, and it's going to help thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are suffering today with ALS. And if there's any way that we could somehow speed up this process to get these treatments, because not only is Brainstorm Neuron the closest, but there's a whole bunch in the pipeline.
Other companies making similar sort of things.
And very promising treatments, and we need help accessing them.
Let me get the last word from you too, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, that's our biggest push right now, is we're spending as much time as we can trying to get a hold of the right people that can help us out, trying to figure out a way that we can solve this problem and get patients like my brother and, you know, roughly 30,000 other Americans dying from this disease right now an opportunity to get access to these drugs.
Amanda, I imagine that was a heck of a blow.
Yeah, it was
I mean, you
more,
guys,
yeah.
it must have been devastating.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so how have you regrouped? How have you recouped?
To be honest, Eric's strength helps me keep going. I think knowing about these treatments that are so close help me keep going, help us keep going. The support has been amazing, and just, yeah, I mean, we need them to access these treatments to save their lives. So that's what we're really fighting for.
I know it's hard. I know it's tough. All right. Thank you all for being here. Important message. Coming up next on Fox 11 News In Depth, more fears are emerging about cruise travel after recent back-to-back infections on a local cruise ship. See you after the break. Within the last month, we've had breaking news stories about widespread stomach illnesses plaguing travelers on 2 back-to-back cruises on the same ship, the Norwegian Joy. One returned to port in San Pedro November 24th, the second December 1st. The illnesses were identified as being the norovirus. Despite that, cruise lines' bad luck. We've seen that norovirus can run through any number of places where a lot of people are housed together. Joining me now, infectious disease specialist Dr. Leo Lee and travel expert Angel Castellanos. Thanks for being here. First of all, let's talk about these two kind of back-to-back cruise incidents, because I've heard of this happening on ships, but rarely have I heard about it being on the same ship twice and back-to-back. Angel.
It definitely does happen, but it is rare. You know, there is a reason why the norovirus is called the cruise ship disease, because everybody is housed together and you are susceptible by being in a big cruise ship to get sick.
Well, these things are contagious, right?
Totally contagious.
And Dr. Lee, you're an infectious disease specialist, so how does that work?
It does work. Norovirus is a highly contagious virus. In fact, most people are aware it is the #1 cause of gastrointestinal illness in the United States.
Whoa. Number one
cause of acute gastroenteritis in the United States.
Really?
Every year it affects about 21 million people, and that translates into about 2 million visits to the doctors, results in about 70,000 hospitalizations and about 800 deaths a year.
What are the symptoms?
Symptoms are commonly nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramping. Occasionally you may have low-grade fevers and just not feeling well, malaise.
Does it come from the food? Does it come from the railings along the hallways? Where does it come from?
It is actually from stool and vomitus. The virus is actually reproduced in the gastrointestinal tract. It gets expelled through both ends, and folks become infected when they come into contact with it and actually ingest the virus.
All right, wait. So when you come in contact with it, okay, not to get gross here,
Okay.
but when you come in contact with it, it's because somebody didn't wash their hands?
Exactly, or you didn't wash your hands.
Yeah.
So what happens is if someone gets sick, they actually contaminate surfaces. If you happen to touch that surface without washing your hands and then move it to your mouth, you ingest that virus.
All right, so that sounds pretty difficult, because then you've got these massive cruise ships. All of a sudden, you got to wash them down?
Well, they do have a cleaning crew and there are procedures in place, but one of the things that I like to do when I go on a cruise ship is I like to pack my antibacterial wipes, bring my sanitizer, and I don't like to touch the remote control in my room, especially after being out on the cruise ship. So what I do is I bring a plastic Ziploc bag, put my remote control in there, zip it up, and now I don't have to touch it. So I'm really trying to minimize my exposure, because according to the CDC, on land in North America, you have a 1 in 5 chance, or 1 in 15 chance of getting the norovirus. On a cruise ship, it's 1 in 5,000 chance.
Wow. I'm going on a trip next week. That'll bring a lot of plastic bags of stuff. What do you think people ought to take with them?
You know, the hand sanitizers are nice, but they're not meant to be a substitute for good hand washing. Some of the hand sanitizers don't kill the virus, and they don't kill bacteria. The best thing to do is to wash your hands and to do a good job. And that basically means getting the hands really wet, lathering up, washing for 20 seconds. And during that period of time, you can sing Happy Birthday to Me 2 choruses, and then dry off the hands with a towel. Before you touch the knob, use that paper towel to turn off the knob on the faucet, and to use it to open up the door to going out of the restroom.
So if you're in public areas, you could also wipe some of those areas so that maybe you're helping to solve the problem.
Well, you know what? The virus is actually killed by bleach and high temperatures. So a lot of
Bleach?
Bleach.
Okay.
Bleach. So in the ideal situation, you'd be able to put a bleach solution on those contaminated surfaces and have them disinfected that way.
So we're looking there at video that shows a theater, a dining hall, places where people could potentially pick this up. Look, you can't go on a trip worried that you're going to get sick. That's just not a good way to go on a trip.
Right. But you want to be prepared and aware. I think if you're especially going out into the buffet, maybe wait a couple of days before you hit the buffet, because if people are bringing the illness onto the ship, you want to wait it out a little bit.
Yeah, but you can't. How can you know?
You don't know. You don't know. But like the doctor said, if you're bringing Clorox wipes, at least that has bleach in it to minimize the risk.
And you can help wipe
risk.
the public areas that you happen to be. Look, if you go on a trip and you know that the ship had a problem, like the people on this last ship, why would that have happened a second time? You would think that the ship staff would have cleaned that ship. We haven't talked to Norwegian. I have no idea what their reaction is, but...
Right. You know, they do have, according to CLIA, which is the trade organization which, you know, runs the Cruise Ship Association, you know, they have...
CLIA, cruise line, whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
International Association or something like that. They have systems in place, so it is absolutely rare. But I think what gives me peace of mind is medical insurance that I take out before I go on the trip.
So this isn't travel insurance. This is just if I get sick kind of insurance.
Yeah, it's a completely separate policy from your regular travel insurance, so medical evacuation and repatriation insurance. And that's something that isn't in your basic travel insurance policy.
You agree with that, Doctor?
Yeah, I do. But I think it's also worth mentioning in terms of CDC has a program that works with the cruise industry. It's called the Vessel Sanitation Program. And their whole goal is to help prevent the introduction and also control the outbreak of gastrointestinal illnesses.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, like I said, I'm going on vacation next week. Let me see. Check the insurance. Okay. All right. Coming up on Fox 11 News in Depth, we'll show you techniques that could save your life or someone else's in case of a shooting incident or other disaster. We'll be right back. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Launched in October of 2015 by the White House, Stop the Bleed is a national awareness campaign and a call to action. It encourages bystanders to become trained, equipped, and empowered to help in a bleeding emergency before professional help arrives. Just last month, sheriff's deputies arriving at Saugus High School after a shooting there were able to use Stop the Bleed to help students who were bleeding and could have died. Joining us now to talk about this program are trauma surgeon Richard Moore and trauma nurse Melissa Barnes from Providence Holy Cross Medical Center. And we have some props here. And I guess this one right here is a leg. First of all, tell us, without going to the props, what Stop the Bleed is. You want to start, Melissa?
Stop the Bleed is a program that was put together by the American College of Surgeons to train the layperson how to control uncontrolled bleeding.
And Richard?
Yeah, so it's basically a class that we give, teaching civilians just different techniques to stop the bleeding.
So give us an idea of how this works. This is we said a leg. It's got a cut and it's got what looks like maybe a bullet hole there.
Yeah, so this is basically just one of our demonstration legs here, and it's got several different types of wounds. And there's basically 3 different techniques to stop the bleeding that we teach. First one is if you don't have anything on you, just your hands alone, just simple direct pressure right over the wound will stop the bleeding. If, however, you have a wound that has a big cavity on it and you happen to have some special gauze here, that also comes with a kit, you can basically just take that gauze and you want to pack it directly into the wound.
Into the wound?
Actually, into the wound as much as you can, because basically filling that wound up with a gauze will cause that nice tamponade to help stop bleeding from all surface of it. And then once you fill up the wound, take the remaining and just kind of apply direct pressure on it.
Okay.
And then the last technique that we teach
probably involves a tourniquet.
Exactly.
So, and how do I know that? Because it's right there.
Exactly. So if Melissa would just hold this for me, and what we do is this is a standard cat tourniquet. There's different types of tourniquets, but all the principles are the same. And basically, you want to put the tourniquet, wrap it around the extremity.
Above the wound?
Above the wound, okay. Correct. Yeah. And pass this strap through. And you want to try to make this part as tight as you can, up to here. And then this plastic rod has actually got a internal ribbon which is tightening the tourniquet. And you're basically watching the wound. And once the wound has stopped bleeding, then you don't have to tighten it anymore. And you snap it in to the plastic clip. Bring this original strap through. And then secure it there. And if you happen to have a marker, you can write the time of when you actually put a tourniquet on.
So there are a couple of things that strike me. First of all, I don't happen to have a tourniquet like that. I don't have it in my car. I don't keep it in my briefcase. So I assume that there are kits or places where you can get things like that to be able to help people if you needed them, correct?
There is a website, stopthebleed.org.
Stopthebleed.org, and you can order things like that there.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the practicality of it. Right there, we're showing a kit as we look at that on the screen. I'm very squeamish. I don't do well with blood. So I see somebody in front of me that's got a wound, and I may be the only person that can save their life. How do I get through this?
I think most people have an inherent want or need to help other people. So
But there are a lot of people like me that have a difficulty
Yes.
dealing with that. But somehow you got to rise above
yeah.
it. And so how do you rise above it?
Well, I've been enjoying stuff like this since I was a little kid. So for me, it made sense for me to go into trauma surgery to help those people. But you know, in a time of emergency, people just kind of push that away, all their squeamishness aside, and they jump right in and they can do amazing things.
But there is another thing that can be amazing, and that's that a person can say, I need to save this life. Oh, wait a minute. I could be liable if I make it worse. I'm not going to touch it.
Right, yeah, so you shouldn't have that concern. There's the Good Samaritan law, which kind of protects you, the civilians, from, you know, any potential liabilities from helping out someone who's in need. And
So actually, we should feel comfortable trying to do what we can to save a life, while at the same time maybe trying to get 911 and get trauma specialists to the scene.
Right, exactly. So the first step in our course that we teach is definitely alert the paramedics, call 911 so they can be on their way. But in the meantime, you know, you can try and do what you can to try and stop the bleed.
There is training, and I want to show everybody a training video from a Texas high school where a shooting was simulated, and teachers and students went through the drill on how to save lives. Now, as we look at that, you see the man using a tourniquet. We see these people following what you just did. And so there are classes that people can attend where they can learn that very thing. You have that at the hospital?
We do. At Holy Cross, all of the local trauma centers have the capability of teaching a Stop the Bleed
How do
class.
people sign up for that?
They can contact their local trauma center, or oftentimes there will be classes listed on their websites that they can look up and sign up for.
All right, so last words, what's the bottom line?
Bottom line is we live in a dangerous world now, and oftentimes the paramedics are going to be far out from, you know, severe mass casualty incidents. And so it's important to kind of train the public to learn how to stop the bleed.
That's very true. That's very true. And last word for you?
The layperson is going to be the first person on scene.
In other words, they're the first responder.
Exactly.
Because they're there.
Right.
All right, so one more time, where can people get that?
StopTheBleed.org.
StopTheBleed.org. Thank you both very much for being here. Very interesting. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. Time to update you on my podcast called What the Hell. We have two podcasts to tell you about this week. One is a poignant conversation with LA City Council President Herb Wesson on the search for his 50-year-old homeless son. Quite a conversation. We'll also continue our talk on knowing how to stop the bleed if you should find yourself in that situation. Both are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and whatthehellpodcast.com. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.